Well, we must be live, Mom.
You mean people can see us?
I'm guessing they can see us. I can see you. Can you see me?
I can see you and I can hear you. Well, of course, because you're right next to me.
Okay, so this will begin the live streaming where you get to watch my mom and her incredibly arthritic fingers continue to sign the book plates that will go into the book that you will hopefully order. The book in question is hard to miss. It's called Vacuuming in the Nude and Other Ways to Get Attention. We've been hawking the book relentlessly here in New York for the last couple of days, and we're just going to free associate for a couple of minutes, give people a chance to join this whole thing. You understand?
I almost wrote my maiden name. Is that a bad sign?
I'm not sure Dad would appreciate it.
Peggy Noble.
We were literally sitting at the Barnes and Noble like an hour and a half ago, signing for people, and I don't know what happened to you. She signed her name like 30 times, and then she started writing Phil instead of Peggy.
He's my youngest son, Phil, and for some reason I wrote his name twice
in a row. It was like, so we have to go through the whole stroke test and, follow my finger. Are you okay? And she's fine. But you're under a lot of pressure, a lot of mental pressure, a lot of physical pressure.
I think my name would come very easily. And so I said, well, we'll have to tear this page out. And Mike said, no, nobody will buy it and tear the page out. Just scratch through it and say, oops, my mistake, and then write your name.
I said, collector's copy.
Collector's copy.
It's what we do in the Rowe family. When we make mistakes, we don't try and hide it. We actually circle it, put an exclamation point, write collector's copy, charge extra.
Oh, they won't charge extra.
No, they're not going to charge extra.
Well, why don't you sign them too?
Because right now I'm busy impersonating a host. Right?
Yeah, but I've seen you write and talk.
I can, but right now I'm just fully focused on vamping for another couple of minutes until we know everybody has joined who wants to join. I'm just going to go through what they call some housekeeping things, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
All right, so many of you have ordered a book. It's Vacuuming in the Nude and Other Ways to Get Attention. You ordered an autographed book. And to state the obvious, my mom is not actually autographing the book. She's autographing these book plates. And here's what they look like. They're pretty great. Just like on the cover, that's her. It's my naked mom, all the naughty bits concealed by a barrel as she vacuums. That's my dad in the background. She signs her name right in here with her heartbreakingly twisted arthritic fingers, thereby, I think, adding value and a certain amount of pathos and sympathy to this whole proposition, which, let's be honest, we're trying to sell books and we want to offer something of value in the course, beyond the book and beyond your signature.
But I don't want them to pity me. I mean, I can still use my hands perfectly fine. They just are a little stiff and disfigured.
Then pity me, because this is what I've been doing for the last week. Just relaxing in the shadow of my mother's enormous celebrity, as everywhere we go, people stop her and, ask for selfies and then look at me and say, you look like that guy on the TV. Yeah.
That's not true. We stop on the sidewalk. Every once in a while, we're stopped by somebody who wants to interview us. And as Mike was being interviewed yesterday, some guy walked by, did a double look at Mike and said, I love you. And then he just walked on. I mean, nobody ever says that to me.
I think he meant it too. I mean, he gave me, it wasn't creepy. It wasn't as creepy as she just made it sound, but it was sincere. He just paused, he looked me square in the face, said, I love you.
It was. And then he just about bumped into somebody who was coming the other way. But
and then stumbled into traffic and was tragically run down. But the point is, he had a great final moment. Very honest.
I'm sure he thought it was worth it.
Honestly, we joke about the danger of being here in New York City, but it's been gorgeous weather. We've been walking around a lot, but they've put bike lanes in now. And the bike lanes are right next to the curbs, which of course are next to the sidewalks. And when you're in the back of the SUV, which they send for you when you're very old and famous like my mother, the temptation is just to roll out of the SUV and walk straight into the network. But if you step into the bike lane, you will be run down. You will be run down either by a rickshaw or some lunatic pedaling the wagon, or somebody,
a skateboard,
or a scooter. They've got motorized scooters now that go about 90 miles an hour. So, if you're old and feeble, you got to be very super mindful of your surroundings to
I
begin.
hope I made it through the hour. I feel so decrepit.
I feel as though we vamped long enough to officially begin, although there is no official beginning. For the record, we are here in my mother's hotel room, autographing her new book, Vacuuming in the Nude and Other Ways to Get Attention. It is a little weird to be sitting here with your mom, who is essentially naked on the cover of the book with a bed. Don't read it, don't make it weird. It's just we are where we are, and we're doing what we can to, answer your questions, which really is what's going to happen. I'll show you how we've got it set up. Peggy's publisher, Jonathan, is squatting there in the corner, and he's got his phone, so he'll be getting to your questions, and Mary will be doing the same thing. She's my boss. So we're all kind of here in my mom's hotel room. It's not weird. It just is what it is. And
Like people
yes.
were asking in the thing, I'm
Yeah.
monitoring on here,
Uh-huh.
where they can get a copy. If they go career.Collectibles.com/vacuuming, they can get one of these.
it said, are you comfortable with that level of hard sell? Because
That was pretty hard, but I mean, if they want a book, we have to
If they're
accommodate.
asking,
if they're asking, look, if you want one, and there's no pressure, then you go to premiercollectibles.com/vacuuming. I guess that's a good URL, but vacuuming is a difficult word to spell.
Yeah, it really is. Two U's and one C. Just remember that. One C and two U's.
Yeah.
they're on your Facebook page, there's a link.
Oh, so if you're on my Facebook page, there's a link. If you're on her Facebook page, there's a link. If you're on the Microworks Facebook page, there's a link. So that's how you do it. Are people really asking how to order the book, Mary? If there's a link right there to click on, does it really come to
Yeah,
that?
but they might have it full screen so they
Oh.
can see it.
Okay. All right. So let's be perfectly transparent. This is a virtual live signing. We're doing what we can to get the books out. This is your official first day. This is publication day.
I know.
Jonathan's very excited.
It's
Bye.
launch day.
It's launch day, so Jonathan might even be a little nauseous. It's
All good.
a lot of pressure out there, but if you've been flicking around the dial, you've probably seen us. She was on the Today Show yesterday, caused quite a stir when I think it was Al Roker or somebody asked her.
Well, you don't have to repeat that.
I don't have to, but I got an hour to kill. What do you want me to do? Really, what do you want me to do?
Move that book back a little bit so they can see my gnarled fingers.
Get a look at her fingers. This
Oh,
is what
yeah,
you.
That's it.
How many have you signed? How many book plates have you signed so far?
5,000 at home, and then we shipped them out to Premier Collectibles.
Yeah.
And then I brought a lot today so that you could sign also, and somebody might be lucky enough to get your signature.
Oh, well, there you go. I'll be signing everything she signs today, and those will go randomly into books, and maybe you'll get one of those.
Yeah.
All right, that
Yeah.
sounds good. So before we go to the questions, let me just ask a couple of the ones that I know we're going to get. Do you really vacuum in the nude? Everybody wants to know.
I don't know. Let's wait until somebody asks.
Does anybody over there have a question?
Somebody has asked that question.
Who specifically, John?
Hang on. Her name is Nancy from Eastbrook, Maine. She says, okay, Miss Peggy, have you really ever vacuumed in the nude? This 69-year-old gal wants to know.
Well, I mean, it could start a trend, I know. And it's not a bad trend, but sadly, I really have never vacuumed in the nude. This is kind of a metaphor for things that people could do to get attention. Through the years, I have tried so hard to bring attention to my writing, to the books that I've written, to the other things that I've written, and I've had a lot of rejection. So I actually do have a friend who vacuums in the nude.
What's her name?
Well, I had to change her name because I didn't want to embarrass her. I didn't want people looking in her windows.
Yeah, but maybe she does. Maybe she's trying to get attention.
I call her Dora.
Hmm.
And so she used to vacuum in the nude. And then she said, and I always take a shower afterwards. And I was shocked because I'm kind of a shy person.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even walk around in my underwear. And I said, you mean nothing on? She said, no, nothing. I do it all the time. It's hot and then I get in the shower. And I said, well, but you're home alone, right? And she said, oh no, Dan's there. And sometimes he joins me in the shower. And then she giggled. Well, but that's Dora. I haven't done that. No.
Dora, my friend Dora.
And we don't have a barrel.
No, we don't have a barrel,
Like, who
but
has a barrel?
we don't. But the first illustration didn't have the barrel. And let me just say, after some focus groups, we went with the barrel.
We decided we'd like to sell some books.
I'll tell you a true story about the cover too. Who was that asking a question for me? One job, Jonathan.
Was it Mary? Was
One
it Mary?
No, it wasn't.
job. No, that's Mary. People love to hear their names. Is why I mean.
He said it first.
Yeah,
All right.
he
Well,
said
whoever it's here.
But when they watch the video, they'll get it.
Yeah, you'll get it. Her first comment on this illustration, my mom, was like, Michael, okay, it's kind of interesting and I guess attention grabbing, but we have to fix the legs. And I said, what's wrong with the legs? And she's like, look at the legs, Michael. Look at them. They're shapely. They're perfect. Look at the definition of the calf. Look at the little divot there under the knee. Look at the conspicuous lack of hair. These don't look like my
Veins,
legs.
honey.
Hair, veins. There's no hairy veins on her legs. She's like, there's no age spots. There's no veins. My viewers will know these are not my legs. I'm like, you seriously want us to put varicose veins and age spots? And she's like, well, I think people value authenticity. I'm like, yeah, they also value their lunch. All right, don't freak them out. It's an illustration. Make it nice. I said, okay. So everything was a battle. But that's the vignette. That's not Dan or Dora. That's my dad and my mother. And if I can be so bold as to answer the question, it's really about getting attention.
People.
See, I thought it was a really clever metaphor because everybody's trying to get attention today on the internets and whatnot. And here you are being 84 and you're trying to get attention. So you revert to this old-fashioned way, just taking your clothes off and vacuuming in front of your husband. I thought it was delightful.
You know what? It's never too late. I might just do that someday. Problem is, our vacuum cleaner is so heavy, I can hardly push it, so your father has to do it. Maybe Dad will vacuum it.
Yeah.
He's more apt to do it than I am. Seriously. He has a lot more nerve than I do.
Nerve is not what I thought you were going to say. I thought we were going to say he has a lot more flesh that could somehow get tragically caught up into the device. I'm just saying.
Enough about the title. Enough about the picture. People buy, I don't want anybody to buy this book thinking, oh, good, a book of pornography. This is just what I'm going to buy for my husband. There is no porno in there. It's a family kind of book.
It was going to be a pop-up.
It has humor. It has a lot of humor. And it's basically my writing story from the time I began teaching school and writing poetry to the present. And along the way, at each phase of my writing non-career, I was writing stories. And I went back and revisited some of those stories, and they're pretty good. So I've included some.
They're awesome. Look, here's the true story. She was on my podcast like a year ago, and we were just talking like we're talking now. And she reminded me of these poems she wrote when she was teaching young kids in elementary school. And there was one called Turtles. How's it go?
Turtles are pokey wherever they go. They carry their houses. That's why they're so slow. And there are about 8 more verses.
You know them all?
No, but
All
I'm
right.
reading this.
Well, we don't have to read that. The point is, we're talking on the podcast, and I said, you know what? A book of poetry, an illustrated book of poems, I think could be fun. That's not what this is, but this is just how the ideas happen. I throw it out there, and then I said, if there are any illustrators listening, send us an example of your work. It'd be fun to hire somebody to do the illustrations from the podcast audience. Well, this guy named Jamie Buckley, the next day, sends this elaborate drawing of a turtle with a house on his back. It's really clever and whimsical.
Really clever.
Yeah, so his illustrations are throughout the book. Each chapter starts with an illustration from him. He did the cover. And he also did the back. That's what I look like when my mother asked me to write the foreword for her third book. I already did the first one, then I did the second one, but then she said, give me one more foreword. So he captured all of it. That's how the cover came together, front and back.
Yeah, exactly. But that looks a lot like your dad, actually.
It does. It does look like that a lot. It looks like Dad when he's leering at you. There's a little bit of a leer.
And Mike, in the special, there's a picture of the cover, and Dad is animated, and his eyebrows are going up, and his foot's going up and down.
That's not his foot. Too much?
Children could be.
Not likely. You say in the special as though people know what you're talking about. They might, but they probably don't. This is crazy. A producer at Fox News, saw me talking about my mom months ago and said, Fox Nation should do like a segment on your mom's next book. It would be helpful. And I said, great. And then he called back and said, yeah, we talked to your mom and we want to do 2 segments. I said, that's terrific. Then he called back again and said, we want to do a whole half hour just on your mom. Are you okay with that? I said, of course. Yeah. And her story is amazing. And he said, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to do an hour, a whole hour on Fox Nation. I said, wow. Called back again. Nope, we're going to do it on Fox Business, a primetime special. Then he called back again and said, no, we're going to do it on Fox. Fox News, this Sunday, the 21st of August at 10 o'clock, there's a special called America's Grandmother, starring her.
And there's no politics in it. It's not political at all.
She wants to make sure you understand that the idea that the most apolitical, uninterested in politics person in the world has a primetime special on Fox News. It's just it just can't get much weirder, really.
I know. But
Another
I'll
question?
take
Well, yes, I don't say.
it. I said, but I'll take it.
Keep saying.
Don't boss me around, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Joan from Elgin, South Carolina asks,
Mm-hmm.
do you laugh while writing your stories?
You know, Joan, sometimes I do. And sometimes I laugh again while I'm reading them because they're true. I mean, this is a memoir. It's the story of my writing life and the stories that I wrote while I was trying to become a noticed writer. And some of these stories just make me laugh out loud. Well, they are funny,
Mm-hmm.
especially the one about the dog and the CPA. And they're all just filled with humor. If I have to say so myself, is that bragging?
A little bit, but that's okay. I mean, it's a live stream, and it is. You know what? The thing is, you're 84 years old. I think, and Jonathan, tell me if we've ever been able to prove this, but I think she's the oldest first-time New York Times best-selling author.
I think you're right.
So that gets you a certain amount of permission to say whatever you want. And then she did it again, and now this is. I mean, I'm going to talk about you like you're not here, but it's her best book, without a doubt. It's actually a very clever memoir told through all of her 60 years. 60 years she wrote every day. Every single day she goes out into the world with this yellow legal pad and her number 2 pencils, and she chats people up and she writes their biographies. She writes stories about people living down the hall. And then somehow those stories, they wind up in the paper. Sometimes they wind up in magazines. And now they've wound up in a book. And so,
Look,
what?
it's salmon colored. Isn't that pretty?
You just notice the color of your...
I've never taken the cover off before. Isn't that nice?
Well, if you were looking for one more reason to pick up Vacuuming in the Nude and Other Ways to Get Attention, you should know it's available in salmon. I think that's probably the only color. It's spawning, and you'll be spawning too by the time you get to chapter 2.
Well, that'll make a buzz.
All right. Next question.
Julie from New Ulm, Minnesota asked, how did you begin your writing career?
Well, Mike just alluded to some poetry that I wrote. When I got out of college, I began teaching school. I did my student teaching in a certain school in Baltimore County. And when I finished and graduated, they said, "We have an opening. Would you like to teach in this school?" And I said, "Sure." Because, well, it's not easy to get a job. And it was a good school.
When,
And so,
when was this? This is
this is like
1961.
1961. I
61.
guess.
So I'm not even.
So we got
Around.
married in 60, and that was in November. So I graduated, that winter. And and then started teaching third grade. Well, I had about 25 third graders at least. Classes were kind of big back then. And I discovered that the best way to introduce a unit to children, the best way to motivate them was through poetry. So I searched my poetry books. I had a bunch of them. I couldn't find anything appropriate. I was doing a unit on animals. And so I wrote my own poem, and I called it Turtles. So they loved it. And that weekend, as luck would have it, John and I were walking through the woods, and we found a box turtle. A box turtle just walked right in front of us. So I took him into school, and later I returned him to the same spot, just so you know. And it was perfect motivation for my unit on animals. So don't you know, a few days later, I was out on the playground, and the children were jumping rope. The girls were jumping rope. The boys were pushing each other around or something. And they were reciting my poetry to the rhythmic rhyme of jumping rope. Turtles are pokey wherever they go. They carry their houses. That's why they're so slow. Anyway, I was floored. I felt like a celebrity. I thought, oh my God, I've died and gone to heaven. Somebody's actually, they love my poetry enough to learn it, to recite it. And so that's when a monster was created. And I couldn't stop writing. I wrote poetry to introduce all kinds of units. And I wrote special poetry for the boys because I learned that boys like something that's a little edgy, something maybe that's a little bit naughty. And so I wrote some poetry for them, and they really did appreciate it. And I was launched. That was my writing career launched. And so when my children came along, I started to write a book. I didn't know what I was doing, but I started to write a book. And as they got older, I finished the book and I started another book. And then I started to take some writing classes. Do you think that answers the question? I took writing classes, and I went to writing conferences all over the place. I joined critique groups, and I took samples of my writing, and they listened to it, and they criticized it, or they told me why they liked it. And I learned to accept criticism that way. And I also learned to ignore it if I thought it was decent what I had written, and I didn't really respect their opinion very much.
Permission to make another metaphor?
Yeah.
To go along with the cover?
Okay.
It just hit me that the first poem that you refer to is this turtle thing.
Mm-hmm. That was the first one, and I wrote about it in my book.
So the tortoise and the hare, right? You're the turtle. You're the turtle. You're the slow and steady. 60 years.
Okay.
60 years. You start with this simple little rhyme with a turtle, and now here it is. It's your third book. It's your best, and you're 84. So yeah, that's how she started. But I don't know if like writers really ever start or finish. I think like people like you are not just gifted but afflicted. Like you don't have any choice, really.
It's a curse because I wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. And when I get back in bed, my mind is writing something, either a blog or a story. I can't stop thinking about it. And your father swears that he has opened his eyes during the Lord's Prayer and seen me writing on the bulletin at church. I'm always making notes. I make notes everywhere. So I say it can be a curse, but not a bad curse.
Well, my dad's got a curse too. He's been your biggest fan, and so my dad is afflicted in a different way. He likes to read aloud. He reads everything aloud. I mean, to this day, he'll walk around just reading from the newspaper to anybody who's there. He's like the town crier. But over the years, he would read her stories. She might write something and stick it on the refrigerator with a magnet, and he'd pull it down, and he'd read it to us, the family, but also read it to the neighbors. And then after church and a Bob's Big Boy, he'd pull it out and be like, "Hey, have you heard the latest from Peggy Rowe?" Reading. So my mom is reading, like writing constantly. My dad is reading what she writes to anybody he can find. And that's, to me, that's what other ways to get attention are all about. And here we are, 6.5 decades later, sitting in a hotel room with your publisher, signing book plates and answering questions. Turtles are pokey wherever they go.
Yeah,
Okay, you can use that
I
if you
like
want.
that.
Good.
I'm a rabbit.
No, you're a turtle.
Oh, I'm a turtle. I think I'd rather be a rabbit.
It's too late.
And
for
there's a
turtle.
story about a rabbit in my book.
Is there? Do I know that one?
They're dead rabbits. It's roadkill.
Oh, right.
And you,
Oh, yeah. I sent you
Michael was doing a job, was it Ohio?
yeah.
With the Department of something.
It was Department of Transportation. It was one of the first dirty jobs back in 2005. And it was in Akron. And they pick up roadkill. Because if you don't pick up the roadkill in places like Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, within 2 weeks, especially during deer season, interstate traffic it's over. There's so much of it. And these guys were picking up deer. I went back to their place and they made placemats, not out of the roadkill, but they had taken pictures, like the most gruesome pictures of roadkill, and put them on people's placemats. So I had to send them to my mom. I sent her a whole set. She loved them.
No, I didn't. I put them right in the bottom drawer of the desk. And I thought, I wonder what Mike expects me to do with these. Serve my friends luncheon when they come on these placemats.
Yeah, I did. That's exactly what I expected.
No, but I did find a use for them, and that story is in my book.
There's a lot of good stuff in the book. Mary, you got a question?
I do. Hold on now, because you guys were.
Oh, you
chatting
drifted
and-
off and you
Yeah.
just started.
No,
you were-
Oh, did
I
I
was
put you to
monitoring the
sleep?
Yeah.
Facebook feed.
Oh,
I was just looking at that,
probably put it.
making sure. I thought Jonathan had it all in control.
If you're just joining us, we're
I'm
answering
ready with one
your questions while we sign these book plates, which go inside of these books, which we would love to send to you. Vacuuming in the Nude and other ways to get attention. PremierCollectibles.com/vacuuming.
All right, Gigi from Southside, Alabama wants to know, do you still have the big blue purse? If so, do you have a picture of it?
Oh my goodness. You know what? There is a picture. If you watch the special on the 21st
Nice.
at 10 o'clock, they show a picture of Old Blue. I mean, I affectionately call her Old Blue. But if you want to call her the big blue purse, that's all right too. I have her big brother, New Black.
New Black.
It's
I don't think you can name a purse New Black. Where is it? Go get it. Let's see if it's actually black. Is it over there? I'll get it.
It's by the bed. That was graceful, like.
This is the closest thing she's got to Old Blue. She calls it, is it just New Black or the New Black?
You can call it whatever you want.
Blue is the new black. No, black is the new blue.
I call him Blackie for short,
I'm not sure you can do that
but
anymore.
he's the same brand
All right.
as Old Blue.
Little context, if you're confused, the event that precipitated her first bestseller was a story she wrote to me when she lost her purse in the Walmart parking lot. You'd been trying to call me to tell me the story, right?
Well, yes. I told your father first. And of course, he started calling all the credit card numbers to cancel the cards. And in the meantime, while he was doing that, I called my children for some sympathy. So I called Phil and Scott and all. They said, "Oh gosh, Mom, we're so sorry." And then I called you and you said, "Don't tell me about it. Sit down and write it and send it to me. I'm on the road tomorrow." And so I sent it to you, and you read it as a video to all of your Facebook fans.
So I'm guessing 80% of the people watching now are familiar with this because it was a big deal. It was one of the funniest stories I'd ever read, and I didn't have time to proof it or really think it through. I just got halfway through it and realized, wait a minute, it's just too good not to share. So I set up my cell phone and I recorded myself reading the story. That's what I put on Facebook. I hit post, and then I went away for a couple of days. And when I came home, 70 million people had seen the video of me reading this crazy story of my dad dumpster diving in a Walmart parking lot and his hearing aids failing and him frantically dialing my mom's phone, hoping that it would ring. And it's just on and on. It's a very funny story. Anyhow, that did it. The publishers were like, if you can put together more stories like that, then we might actually have something, because nobody wants, like, your stories are not what publishers. It's not what publishers thought they wanted.
No, they wanted something with a hook. They wanted stories about you because you have some notoriety for some reason or other. And they thought, well, if I wrote stories about you, people would be more apt to buy them than if I wrote about somebody else that nobody knew.
Yeah, but I mean, look, so not to belabor the point, but imagine it's 4 years ago, and for all my life, all I've seen is my mother chase this dream that's never going to happen. She's never going to be a best-selling author because nobody's ever going to publish her work. But then all of a sudden this thing happens and publishers are legitimately interested. And so I go to my mom and I'm like, "Look, you got a shot. Just write a couple dozen stories, put me in them so they have a hook." And she said, "No, I've got 2 other sons, Michael." I'm like, I know, but just do this, get 1 book on the shelf, and then you can write whatever you want. So of course, as you probably know, Mom goes away and writes a couple dozen really great stories, and I'm not in any of them. Maybe 1 or 2. She writes a book about her mom, and that's what's called About My Mother. And sure enough, publishers didn't want it, so Mary and I printed 10,000 copies, and you guys bought them on Facebook in like a week, pretty quick. And that's what did it. That's when the publishers came. Not Jonathan, he was a true believer from the start, but other publishers came sniffing around. Oh, they said, "You didn't tell us she could actually write." Well, she can. And so, there it is. That's how it happened. That was actually a better answer to the first question from the woman in Maine who wanted to know how. That's it.
So much for short answers.
Sorry. You know what? This isn't about me. So I'm just going to sit quietly and sign my name.
Okay. Are there other questions?
So, David from El Dorado Hills, California wants to know, back when your son Mike was pitching items in the hours.
Yeah, I'm just focused.
In the wee hours of the morning on QVC, did you ever stay up to watch or record his shows? Did you ever order items he pitched due to his charming and convincing product descriptions? The ones I've seen are hilarious. Having an idea of what's going through Mike's head as he's describing the items.
I absolutely did. You better believe I did. We've never had any relatives who were on television before then. And it was before.
Not for any good reason, I'll tell you that.
And it was before we got a VCR. So I would set the alarm because Mike was rarely on in prime time because they didn't trust him. He was like a loose cannon. So he was on in the middle of the night, like 3 o'clock.
3 to 6 a.m. Graveyard shift.
But he had a cult following in California, it turned out. Anyway, so I would set the alarm and get up at 3, and I can remember my husband looking at me and just rolling over thinking, crazy woman. So I got up in my pajamas and I fixed a cup of tea and I sat there and I watched him for 3 hours. I was no good the next day. And I was glad when we finally got a VCR and I could record him and watch it. But yes, I did. What's the rest of that question?
Were you vacuuming naked while you watched your son?
Did you buy any of the items?
Oh, I did buy one or two of the items. I bought a vacuum cleaner, actually. That's funny. I bought a sharp
Oh
vacuum.
no! Now it's all. Now I understand the title. Ooh. Yeah.
I bought a sharp vacuum cleaner and it worked really well. And I used it fully clothed.
That's the spirit.
And what else? I bought some mixing bowls. Yeah, I bought 2 or 3 things. His grandmother, on the other hand, oh my goodness, she was such a fan. Oh, she wouldn't miss a minute of Mike on television. And I'll tell you, she bought collectible dolls.
She'd buy anything.
She had
Amazing.
dolls sitting on top of the china closet, on top of every piece of furniture. There were collectible dolls looking down at you.
And it was amazing because my whole approach in those days was to make fun of the products I was asked to sell and the people who bought them.
Oh, did
Which
you
is-
make fun of your grandmother?
Not directly, but I mean, they did fire me 3 times. My mother, okay, so she not only taped my shows and watched my shows, she really took an active role in what passed for my career at the time.
This is embarrassing.
Well, she started writing letters to my boss. I mean, what was the first thing?
Anonymously, I
Yeah.
wrote, but my Stein is somebody else's name. I don't remember. I think it's in one of my books.
It's something like, oh, I just wanted to say I love QVC and all of the terrific products, but you have a real gem hidden away in the middle of the night in this Mike Rowe person. He seems so warm and personable and knowledgeable and responsible and soothing. And my family and I just really think he's prime time material. And then, she would make up some name and she'd like drive up to Pennsylvania to mail it from some other
From
zip
another
code,
zip code.
right? I swear to God. And my boss at the time, a guy named John Eastman, he didn't say anything, but she sent a number of these.
3.
It's 3 is a number for sure. And then one day at a host meeting, I had to get up early once a week and sit there and go through these standard meetings. And John concludes with, and just want to share some amazing feedback, Mike. You've really struck a chord with the late night crowd. And he read all 3 of these letters, and when you read them back to back, it's so clear they're written by not just the same person, even though she changed the name each time. It was obvious it was my mother. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. And everybody just had such a laugh. But, I appreciated it.
Embarrassing.
Mm.
And the worst part is, he came home one day. He would come home on weekends sometimes. And he said, oh, something awful happened at QVC. One of the hosts has a relative who was writing letters, pretending to be somebody else, praising the work of his relative. And he said, they fired him. Well, my eyes are this big, and I'm thinking, oh no, what have I done? And then you laughed and you whipped out the letters and you handed them to me. And you said, oh, Mom, thanks. These were so entertaining at our meetings. I mean, these were the high point of our meeting. And I was very embarrassed.
Mm.
But I got over it.
But, once again, we come full circle. I'm reading her letters out loud. My boss is reading her letters out loud to my coworkers. And then 30 years later, I'm reading her stories out loud to you. 70 million people watching. And here we are in a hotel room signing book plates. You can't make this stuff.
Full circle.
Yeah. Turtles
So
are pokey wherever they go.
It's probably good that I did that.
Yes, Mom. It was very good. It was all part of the plan.
And also, I might have been a little interfering as a mother. I don't know. Tell me what you think. He was working at computer land selling computer contracts.
Huh.
It didn't help that he didn't hurt that he didn't know anything about computers, but he could sell the contracts. Mike could sell anything.
I'm selling this book, aren't I?
And I tried, and I wanted to call him at work from time to time, but I didn't want him to get in trouble. And this was before cell phones. And so I would call the receptionist and I would say, oh, this is Mrs. Collins. Could I speak with Mike Rowe, please? And she'd say, oh, yes, right now, just a minute. And then she'd cover the receiver. And I heard her say one day, Mike, it's your mom. She's Mrs. Collins this time.
It's so weird. Like, why? I mean, she was like all this cloak and dagger. She never wanted anybody to know she was calling me or writing on my behalf. But whatever. Things we do. Those were. Thanks for that question. Was it Dave? QVC. That's actually a whole. That's a world. I'm ready to revisit. Write about, jump into.
Yeah.
Because
It was funny. It was really laugh out loud funny. Everything about it.
You know what? Somebody wrote me a letter the other day because I referenced it in a New Dirty Jobs episode. We were conducting a necropsy on a dolphin. Brutal stuff, but really important. You'll see it next season. But I started talking to one of the marine biologists, and somehow she told me that as a kid, she used to just dream about being a mermaid. And I told her about that. Were you watching the night at QVC when we were selling The Little Mermaid? It was
I watched everything you did, so I'm sure I did. Refresh me.
Well, I had some weird dream, not really an erotic dream, but not really not. It's kind of like here on the back of the book. She makes it very clear. This book is not erotica, right? Well, I'm telling you, my dream was not really erotic, but it featured the Little Mermaid. She was in it. And when I woke up, I have to admit, I was
Interested.
I was interested, right? I was interested in the Little Mermaid in a way that a 28-year-old man has no business, right? But you dream what you dream, whatever. And apparently, there's a word for that today, like a very specific, weird.
I don't know.
Some animated thing. I don't know anything about it either. But this is what would happen on QVC. It'd be 3:30 in the morning, right? You're sleep deprived, you're strung out on caffeine, and you're just free associating. And I wound up sharing this strange dream I had about the Little Mermaid. And I got so much grief for that from my boss, understandably. I'd have been canceled today had it happened.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in a minute. Like, well, what are you doing? Even talking about this. But now if you go online, that clip is online. Somebody was, not my mother, at least I don't think it was you, but somebody used to tape all those old crazy episodes. And all these clips are out there. And you can find me telling the story about this weird dream I
Oh,
had.
you did so many weird things on QVC. You fell asleep one night on air.
On live TV, I fell asleep. That's something, right?
And then you had the nerve to tell me later, no, I wasn't really asleep. But I saw drool in the corner of a mother knows when her son was going to sleep. He was advertising bedding.
And as always, I wanted to really, you to
Demonstrate.
engage with the product. Yeah, I want to demonstrate. So I got into bedding.
He did, and covered himself with a duvet. And next thing I know, he's making groaning sounds. And he was asleep. So what did they do? I can't remember. Did they cut to a commercial? Or
Well, they panicked a little bit. What had happened was we were ending at the top of the hour. There was a break. So this was the final product at the end of an hour called Ideas to, I don't know, make your life easier, beautify your home, something. No, it was called the Linen Closet.
Oh, okay.
All we sold was linens. And so I got in this bed to demonstrate the duvet, and I got in the duvet, and they had an overhead cam, which is funny, right? I did most of the presentation lying down like this, talking this camera. And I was so tired, and the studio was always cool, but you can feel the warmth of the studio lights, and it's just so relaxing. I was just so tired. And while I was doing the pitch, the control room starts playing lullaby music. And I start talking like a father who's trying to lull his child to sleep. And I literally put myself to sleep. And we went to a break, 2-minute break, and then we came back at the top of the next hour. And they thought I was doing a gag where I was going to pretend to be asleep. but that's what you saw. I actually fell asleep.
I know you did.
Full on REM. In the space of 2 minutes, I was gone. And in my dream, I heard a man yelling at me. And it was in my IFB. It was the director screaming, "Wake up, you're up, you're up, you're up." And it was just going on for like 30 seconds.
You didn't talk about the mermaid in your sleep, did you? Good.
I don't know.
I'm glad.
I hope not.
And then another night he burned himself. But you better go on with more questions.
Real bad. That was a 3rd-degree burn.
I know.
Yeah.
It made me sick. I wanted to cry.
It really hurt. That guy fell off a ladder there once. I remember. The stuff that happened on that show. I remember we had a guest, pretty woman, mid-40s. She was selling some sort of lotion, and she farted. I mean, like,
You can't say that.
I can say anything. These people. We were having a perfectly rational conversation, and there was a pause, and I looked at her, and she turned the color.
She turned salmon.
She went salmon on me. Ah, man, that's the beauty of live TV. 1 hour takes 1 hour. This signing, you know, when it's done, it's done. It's live. We'll be done. I don't know how long we've been talking anyway. Are we okay?
You are on 47 minutes.
Oh my gosh, we better write faster.
Well, look.
Write more questions.
So, Lorelei from Mission, British Columbia. What would you do with your time if you were not writing?
Lorelei?
Lorelei.
Oh, Lorelei.
It's a great name.
You know, Lorelei, since we've moved into the home about 15 months ago, there are so many options of things to do. I mean, there's swimming and there are all kinds of games, card games, you name it. And there's a club for it. Coin collectors, people interested in ancestry. There are just so many opportunities there. I would probably take advantage of some of those opportunities. And I've been asked to teach a course in writing, or at least lead a group of people who would like to be writers.
So imagine you didn't tell me that. Is there money? Do they pay you?
No, it would be a volunteer.
Oh, well, you know what? You got to give back. You got to give.
Sure you do. And there's so many people over there. And I'm one of like 5 or 6 writers over there.
Yeah.
Published writers.
Bestsellers?
No, I don't know.
Probably not. No.
I don't know about that. But anyway, that's what I would do, Lorelei. I would spend some time
Screwing around,
getting into the activities at the home.
just wasting time.
And I would join the chorus there.
Jennifer and Stacy from Carnegie, Pennsylvania. When Mike was young, did he get embarrassed by you often? Your unknowing humor is the stuff that made a teenager crawl under the table. You're an inspiration.
Oh, isn't that sweet? I guess you'd have to ask Mike that. I don't believe I embarrass the children because I don't do that, do I?
Okay. All right. What's her name?
Jennifer and Stacy.
Yeah, Jennifer and Stacy. It's a great question, but you don't have to set it so far in the past. The answer is yes, of course. My mother did a lot of things over the years that I found personally mortifying.
I never farted on television.
Well, this live stream's not done yet, is it?
And you did have Chipotle.
My mother ate. I've never seen anybody. She murdered 2 tacos. I mean, the size of a loaf of bread. Just demolished them. It took her an hour, but she ate them all. And the last thing she said before we went live, I swear, somebody told me, she said, "There were a lot of black beans." And I don't think these windows open. Like, don't worry, I'm gonna throw one of these chairs through it in a minute. So never mind the past. Yesterday on the Today Show, I'm sitting there. All right. We're having a lovely conversation about this book, Vacuuming in the Nude and Other Ways to Get Attention, available now at premiercollectibles.com/vacuuming. And one of the hosts says, you know, all those years on the road, your son's doing dirty jobs. Did he ever send you these presents? And it's a question we get now and then because people have heard the placemat story with the roadkill on it. And people have heard stories about other weird things I've sent. And I thought she was going to tell one of those stories. But what she says is, oh my, yes, so many odd things. One day, out of the blue, he sent me a bottle of semen. And you see, like, Al Roker, like, is about to fall backwards off his chair.
Poor Al.
Everybody's clutching their pearls. You can hear, like, it gets very quiet. And then you hear somebody, like from the control room going, oh. Because I think there's a list of words that you don't say on morning TV.
I think I said you were at a quarter horse farm.
Yeah, you kind of glossed over that. You just, what everybody heard was, one day my son sent me a baby bottle filled with semen.
From a stallion on a quarter horse.
They didn't hear that. We had to clarify it. All right. So I was doing a story on artificial insemination, and we had gathered from a famous stallion, a quarter horse named Paid by Chick. And when the horse presents and expresses himself, he does so in
a rather dramatic fashion.
It's my story.
Oh.
They do it in an artificial vagina. That's the technical. It looks like a hot water bottle. And at the bottom of this hot water bottle, a baby bottle, a literal baby bottle, is screwed in. And in the baby bottle is this plastic bag. So all of the what they call the white gold, right, trickles down through this lubed up apparatus and collects in the baby bottle. So I got it, right? I did the whole thing. I wore the bicycle helmet. I was very safe, you know. It was awesome. And I got Mary's looking at me like, well, yeah, you had a good run. You had a pretty good career, Mike. No,
apparently Cheryl at the Villages saw it because her comment was, wait, the semen was from who? What?
Right.
Yeah, right. She watched the Today Show, and like I could hear America go. I mean, geez, what
kind of a son would send his mother that?
Right, his own seed.
So I could have worded it better.
You could have, right? So anyhow, yeah, I sent her, you know, because I send her things from the road that I think she'll find amusing, and I know she loves horses. I didn't know she loved them that much, but I thought she'd appreciate this gift. It was $35,000 of ejaculate, essentially, and I sent it to her, and
it was very pretty in the sunlight. It kind of reflected the rays.
We used to hang it on the Christmas tree for a few years, you know, just because it was festive in ways that other families weren't. And then it came back to me. She sent it back to me, and I had it on the mantle in my apartment for years. And it's right, when the sun hits it, when the late afternoon sun comes through and catches the essence of the seed, it throws these little rainbows, prisms.
That's really disgusting.
Anyhow, that's the story she told on the Today Show yesterday. Okay, so did she embarrass me when I was young? Yes. When she's writing letters to my boss under an alias that anyone can see through? Yes. But then 35 years later on national television, does your son ever send you anything unusual? Oh, you know, bottles of semen.
And flower pots made of manure.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And owl vomit wrapped in aluminum foil.
That was a great job. Don Ciccoletti, rest his soul, he's gone now, but he collected, they call them pellets. Owls vomit up every night, right? Because their stomachs are different, and after they digest all of the flesh on the mouse or the vole, they call them, or any of these little rodents, they throw them back up in these pellets. And this guy Don would collect them and wrap them in tin foil and sell them to schools.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids would open them up and rearticulate the creature's bones from the inside. Is that fantastic?
Oh yeah, he sent me a bunch of them, and he said, "Next time you have a party, Mom, here's a game for you. Name that creature," and everybody would get a little aluminum pouch of owl vomit, and they can put together the animal and see what the owl had eaten. Now, is that sick or what?
You could have shared that with the Today Show.
I should next time.
There are any number of things you could have gone with,
In
but
2 years, I'll share that.
Nope. Mom was in the mood for a sperm story.
All right, let's have another question.
Michelle from Ladysmith, British Columbia, Canada. Oh, wants to know if they made a movie or sitcom about your life, who would you want to play you and John?
Wow. I would like to know, are we young people at the time or are we current? You mean like?
Your call.
Yeah, I don't think it's really
I
spelled
think
out.
Young.
Yeah, young. Let's say right around the time when you're writing your turtle poem. You're just getting started.
Because if it's right now, I kind of like Judi Dench.
Yeah, she's very, very talented. What is she, like 180?
She's about my age, I think.
And for John?
And for John,
Judi Dench.
No, Lionel Hardcastle, the guy that plays her husband in As Time Goes By.
Oh,
It's a PBS show.
This dude's name is Hardcastle?
Yes, Lionel Hardcastle. He has big cheeks.
I'm sure he does.
But they're nice. I like those two together. But as a young person, it would have to be somebody thin with dark hair. I don't really know many young actresses these days. I'm sorry.
Winona Ryder?
Okay.
I thought you looked a little like her when you were young.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll take that.
how about your dad?
Well, I'll tell you who I think could do a great job when he gets to be around 60 would be me. But that means somebody would need to be playing me when I was around 30. So maybe get Rob Lowe. He'd be good because he looks 30 years younger than he is. I don't know. You know who was the kid on My Three Sons who played Robbie Douglas? He'd have been good for me.
I don't know these names. I'm not real good with pop culture.
No, but if you need a bottle of semen,
I'm your girl. They must be sick of us by
Leslie
now.
from Hopkins, Nebraska wants to know if you ever called Mike Mikey.
Oh yeah, I do, and I still do sometimes. If you give me a call, I'll say, "Hi, Mikey. How you doing?"
yeah, I don't
And
call
just
as much as I
today.
used to.
Just today, we were trying to figure out what to do with some kind of food.
Avocado.
It was the avocado toast. Jonathan had gotten avocado toast for breakfast, and he only wanted half of it. And I said, "Give it to Mikey. He'll eat anything."
It's just pretty true. Do we have a sense of how many people are watching this and whether or not anybody's having a good time?
Is anybody watching?
Because they told us to
Is
do
anybody
it
there?
to go for an hour, but if people are enjoying this,
Hi.
no, it's all right, John. It's not like we're live or anything. Yeah, go to Facebook and see it. It's very strange, right? So if you've just joined us, this must be super weird. We're sitting here in my mother's hotel room doing this live signing, and it's like we don't have an actual producer with us. They're someplace else, and this is just my computer that's open. So I don't know if there's anybody actually out there. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm happy to sit here and do this for as long as I got coffee and you're good to go. Stand by, right with you. We're getting data. 2,800 people. Well, if there are 2,800 people who like it, they're probably watching it.
1,600 are looking right now.
Oh, we got 1,600 people looking at us. Oh, that seems positive.
Why is kids giving me different information?
And we're making it up as we go, folks. Hey, how's your fingers?
I'm fine, honey. This is nothing. This is a walk in the park. All right, one more question.
Am I bleeding?
It stopped.
I cut myself in the shower this morning, right before we went on, what was it, Fox and Friends, I think. Bled for an hour. Couldn't stop it. In between questions, I just started dabbing at my lip. Literally bled for 3 hours. It's maddening.
Yeah.
Ever tell you the story? I cut myself shaving before that big presentation when I was working at Computer Lab.
No.
This is a funny story.
Put it in the book.
Hold on a second. How many we got?
It's like 1,700.
Oh, there's 1,700 people watching.
Between the 3 channels.
Yeah, that's
It's
fun.
on-
So I'm late for the biggest presentation of my life. I'm working for a company called Computerland, and I'm presenting Provident National Bank with this proposal. And I'm in the shower and I'm shaving, and I cut my neck right here, pretty bad, like bad enough. When I looked down the drain, it was like bleeding, you know. But I put the toilet paper on it, it seemed to stop, and I got in my car and I drove, and the rear view mirror had fallen off of my car, so I couldn't. I had no rear view mirror. Consequently, I didn't take a look at myself before I got out of the car. And then I ran into the bank. It was a couple minutes late. They took me to the conference room. I walked straight in. I stood in front of 15 people, made the presentation, went on, talked for maybe 20 minutes. And when I was done, they said, all right, this is really informative. Let's pause for some coffee and answer some questions. And I said, great. And I turned around, and on the credenza, they had coffee and they had donuts all laid out. And they had a mirror on the wall above the credenza. And I swear it looked like someone had cut my throat. I had bled all down the collar of my shirt, and it covered the knot on my tie, and it had crusted. I didn't know.
And nobody told you?
Nobody told me. I stood there in front of these 15 bankers, and they let me talk for 20 minutes. And it looked, I mean, if you saw me on the street, the average person saw somebody walking down the street like this, you call 911. But these guys just sat there and watched me talk. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I turned around and I said, you guys taking bets? Is this let's see how long the salesman can talk before he collapses? What, loss of blood? But anyhow, what another question?
That's kind of
Diane from Dallas, Texas.
Thank God, Diane.
She said, of all the life events you've shared in your books, which one is your favorite and why?
Now, the story about my mother in my first book about my mother, I had taught my mother to ride. She wanted to be part of my life, so I taught her how to ride.
Horses.
Oh, horses, yes. And sometimes
She always wanted to be on a bike.
She always leaves out the description.
It's always said, it's from a horse. It's not my semen. A horse.
I was very horsey, and I love her horses and a rider. And my mother wanted to be part of my life, so I taught her how to ride. And every once in a while, she wanted to accompany me on a trail ride. So she got all dressed up in my my boots and my joggers and my rat catcher shirt and my helmet. And she looked like she was off to the fox hunt. And we would ride through a couple of neighborhoods before we got to the trails. She would wave to people, always wave to the riders. So we were riding down the trail, and this man appeared. It was a construction site. They were building some houses, and he came out to the trail, which was under some power lines. He came out to the trail, and my mother was getting ready to give her royal wave when he unzipped his pants and dropped them down to the ground. And in my book, I say, and he flaunted the family jewels. My mother, she said, and I must have been 15 or 16. And she said, Peggy, don't look. And she kicked her horse in the side, and off we went down the trail. And I said to the reader, really, she shouldn't have been worried, because I took care of two 2,000-pound horses. I wasn't impressed at all.
Yeah, I believe it's very humbling growing up with horses for a guy. Very, very humbling.
Well,
By the way, looking at the comments, I see somebody all the way from Austria.
Austria.
Yeah, there's
Late night.
No kidding.
I've seen,
Well, hello, Austria.
Austria and Australia, I believe.
and hello, Australia.
A lot of comments on the Viva paper towel.
Oh boy,
commercial. Just
is that was probably in your second book, right? About your father.
Yes.
The whole Viva thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Our commercial, our delve into the commercial world.
The rule is simple, you know. If I never got to see my parents much anymore after Dirty Jobs blew up, unless I hired them, and so Whether if it was a commercial campaign, you know, we would always try and get them involved. In fact, this season on Dirty Jobs, you'll see them. They came out and ate crabs with us. Did a great story on J.O. Spice, the company that actually everybody thinks is Old Bay, but the company that makes most of the spice. And they came out, we had crabs. I just saw the rough cut of that. Oh, you're in it.
Oh,
Yeah,
it was a
you're,
nice day.
you're charming. Yeah,
Nice people.
yeah, it's very nice.
Becky from Beaumont, Texas. Thank you for bringing us many smiles by sharing your family. What is a special memory you have about Mike with his little brothers?
Might be Beaumont, Texas,
Oh, okay.
but Beaumont. Important thing is you're Debbie and you're from Texas. And you've asked a nice question. Becky. What I call her?
Debbie, not from Dallas.
Debbie's not from Dallas. No, I know Debbie from Dallas. Becky.
And she's not a mermaid.
Got it. And she's not a mermaid, but you will be in my dreams, Rebecca.
And now she can die.
Wow. So,
A special memory of you and your little brothers. One night, we took our children to a Halloween haunted house. Mike was about
30.
He was about 5, and his younger brother was about 3, and the baby we left home with my mother. And so we're walking through this haunted house, and there were certain scenes set up, and there was a scene with a witch sitting in a rocking chair, and it looked like a stuffed witch sitting in a rocking chair, and it was a lovely haunted kind of scene. And Mike was real close, and he was looking real close at that witch, and she jumped, and Michael jumped back. It scared him so much. He looked at us and he said, "That scared the hell out of me." And he was like 5 years old, and I didn't know whether to smack him or kiss him, but it was funny.
Yeah.
I didn't smack you.
I kind of remember it. I have like a memory trace that. I'll tell you what I remember.
We were shocked because we didn't talk like that. We never, I mean, especially in front of the children. We
Never.
Never used pornography.
We have very rarely used pornography in front of the children. Almost
Obscenity.
never.
Obscenities. Never. Ever.
So I don't know what it is about our family. I think a lot of families delight in really trying to scare the hell out of each other. It's just, I love it. I look at it as a tonic. You know, you get a really good scare, a really good one. You don't need a vacation. I mean, it really it gets you going.
More laxative.
And so we did some horrible things to each other. But my mother, I used to live in the basement. I really did. They put me in the basement of this little farmhouse where we grew up. I lived down there most of the time. I had my own entrance, you know, so I was still living at home when I was 21.
Actually, you lived under the stairs, just like Harry Potter.
I
The
did.
stairway came down, and then there was Mike's bedroom.
This explains everything. This explains all you need, folks. I'm downstairs cowering under the stairs. Mom's naked upstairs vacuuming. I don't know what Dad's doing. Now I come home one night. I went out with some friends after work. I had a pretty big night, and came in around 2:30 in the morning. I was always very quiet. Never wanted to wake anyone up, and let myself into my room, and I turned on the light, and the basement ceiling was about 6'1", and I was 6 feet. So it's not a spacious room down there, right? So I'm standing in the basement in my bedroom, and I turn on the light, and I turn around, and there's a woman in my bed, and she's lying very still, and she has a red bandana on, and her arms are at her side,
And a yellow top.
and a yellow, like a yellow jumper. And her eyes are open, and she's looking right at me. And it's just not the thing you expect to see in your bed. I jumped, hit my head on the ceiling. That's how, I mean, and my mother had found a mannequin in the trash can down at the end of the lane. Somebody had thrown out a.
It was trash night, and somebody had discarded just the torso of a mannequin.
Yeah. Who does this?
And so I rolled up a blanket for the legs and I put the torso. But this was only after you had teased. Oh, you and your brothers had teased your father something terrible. Dad was in the kitchen reading,
Mhm.
probably a Stephen King book, sitting on the sofa. It was a summer evening and it was still fairly early, but it was dark. The screen window was behind John and he was sitting there reading. And all of a sudden, these three kids, and you were probably a teenager at the time, screamed at the top of their voice, right like a foot from John's ear. And he threw the book in the air and jumped up. And I could hear you guys laughing outside. You knew better than to tease me. I don't take well to teasing. But Dad was wonderful. He was one of 8 kids. And believe me, he grew up with teasing.
Yeah.
When you came in the door, I thought, boy, are they going to get it. And your father said, boy, you got me that time, boys. That was
So that's a
really
good one.
fun.
It's a good hit.
Yeah. And, I mean, doesn't he have a marvelous attitude?
He does when it comes to that kind of thing, but he gives as good as he gets.
Oh, indeed.
A couple months later, I came home early from a camping trip, and my parents were away for the weekend, and I was the only one home. And you know, when you know you're home alone, you do things you wouldn't. You sing, you talk to yourself. At least I do. You know, you dance around, right? And so I'm in the shower once again, just standing in the shower, kind of singing, and I don't hear them come home. They come home early, but I don't hear anything. They come in the house, and Dad comes in the bathroom. I don't hear him, and he just yanks the shower curtain like almost off its clips and says, "We're home." Next thing I knew, I was getting up. You know, he scared me flat on my back, naked. So we kept a running thing.
You did. I was never part of that.
But you crossed the line with the mannequin torso.
I did.
That was not cool.
I just couldn't resist it.
And you know, Scott got under my bed one night.
He did.
Yeah, he waited for me to come. Waited for me to get in bed. It's another late night. And you're just lying there asleep, just almost asleep, and he starts pushing the mattress. And then he starts going, earthquake, earthquake. I was so confused. Anyway, we did that stuff all the time. Look, the woman who wrote the book is the kind of woman that would put half a mannequin into your bed, create legs out of blankets, and then just wait for you to come home, knowing that she's probably going to give you some sort of vapor lock, some kind of cardiac event. You'll laugh yourself sick when you read this book, premiercollectibles.com/vacuuming.
But I hope also you will be inspired, especially if you have ever had a passion, a dream of doing something, and you didn't know if you should keep doing it or not. Maybe you shouldn't, maybe you shouldn't. I mean, if you're
We don't
old-
know. She doesn't know if you should keep doing whatever you're doing, do you? You don't know.
Well, no, it depends on what you're doing. If you're like 85 years old and you want to be a motorcycle driver, maybe not, you know, or if you want to be in a roller derby and you're 85 and you've never been on skates before, you probably will never be able to do that. But if you've always wanted to sew something or read something or write something, or it's not too late, maybe, you know, just keep doing what you like to do, what makes you happy.
Might be too late. We don't know. We hope it's not too late. And when in doubt, you know, assume an alias and write a nice letter about your son or daughter and send it to their boss. Or put half a mannequin in their bed. Do that. Creep up behind and give them a good scare every now and then. But you know what? I mean, honestly, we should probably end on something hopeful and somewhat amusing. But the thing I most admire about all your books and everything you've done along the way is that even though you've been looking to get the attention, you've been looking for an audience, you've been looking for a publisher most of your life, you know, you always amused yourself first. And you always had Dad there to take your stuff and take it out into the world and find whatever audience there was. And you were a successful author in that way. long before Jonathan here came along, long before anybody read your stuff. You were a hit.
Well, I was. I mean, with my family especially.
Yeah.
They enjoyed what I wrote. And it made me happy. It really did.
You know what? We should say this too. There's some stuff in this book I didn't think you were where I didn't think you would go. She writes about her cancer. She was diagnosed with breast cancer 20 years ago.
1997.
Well, more than that, then, yeah.
Almost 25 years.
And those stories and how you got through that, and how you used humor and that support group, and I think people are going to relate to that because it touches so many people, and it changed you.
It did change me. But my story wouldn't be out there had it not been for you encouraging me, telling me to write about it. Because I went through some depression, joined a support group, ended up staying there for a couple of years. And it was a bad time. And when Mike came home to visit, he said, "Mom, write about this chapter of your life." And I said, I was so depressed. I said, "Do I look like somebody who's going to write a story?" And he said, "And put some humor in it." I said, "A story with humor?" He said, "Well, do it for all the people who have had a similar diagnosis. Do it for your family." So I did. And later, Mike did publish it, I think on your social media page. Millions of people read it. And there were thousands of comments. And so I put that story in this book because it was very important. It was part of my writing journey.
Yeah, and thank God you beat it. A lot of your friends didn't. A lot of people in that support group didn't make it. But
Yeah.
man, I remember when you came home, when you felt guilty because you survived, and you went to the leader of the group and said, "Look, this group has been instrumental in my recovery, and I want to step aside to make room for somebody else because you can only have so many people in a group like this."
There was a waiting list for Tuesday afternoon, and that's when I went.
Yeah. And what did she
And
say?
she said, "Oh, Peggy, please don't stop coming. Everyone brings a different dynamic to the group. You bring humor and lightheartedness, and we would really miss you."
What? There was a woman. This is almost too crazy to believe, but given everything else we've talked about,
It's in my story.
can I give it away?
Well,
We're trying to sell books.
okay.
Tell them about the woman who had an orgasm every time she sneezed.
Oh, yeah.
Tell them that. This is crazy. This is,
Little girls are watching now, and they're saying, "Mommy, what's that?"
well, good. Teachable moment. All right. Yeah.
Well, there was a woman in the group who we shared stories every week, and there was a lot of humor. And she had had a lot of cancer treatment. She'd had radiation, she'd had chemo, and she'd been fighting it for a long time. And she said the latest treatment had resulted in a really strange phenomenon that she said, "Every time I sneeze, I have an orgasm." And I didn't know what to think. I was pretty sure she was kidding because everybody did laugh. And I said, "Well, gosh, that's too bad. Have you talked to your doctor about it?" And she said, "Well, I will when I get around to it."
And then,
And then the next week we celebrated her birthday. And I gave her a little can of pepper with a caveat, "Do not open that here." And she didn't. But that's part of my cancer story. There was a lot of humor and a lot of sadness.
but mostly humor
Mm-hmm.
and life,
Watching from Ireland.
Yeah. People watching from Ireland
And Sweden.
and Sweden and Austria. Mom, you're international.
How about that?
Yeah. They have orgasms over there.
Oh, no, they can back into the Nude.
Oh, they most certainly do. I'm sure. Sweden? Are you kidding? Any idea what goes on in Sweden?
Never been to Sweden. I imagine they back them everywhere.
They're very clean people. Well, we've been at it now for nearly an hour and a half.
Oh yeah, that's probably long.
You guys probably have lives, right?
They have to eat dinner. Well, depending on where they are.
Yeah.
For breakfast.
I wrote the foreword for this book. Not that anybody cares, but it is the third foreword that I've written for her third book. This is her best book. It's probably my worst foreword. But,
No, it's not. It's really good, Mike. It
Well-
made me laugh out loud.
well, I did my best, because when your 80-year-old mother asks you to write the foreword for her first book, you got to assume it might be her last, right? So you put it all out there. And then again, the second one, you put even more out. There's nothing else left to say. And then the third one. So I asked you, I said, is there a story I don't know? Is there something that happened early in your life that would illustrate your commitment to the craft and define your identity as a writer? Something that I haven't heard of. And you said, oh, I don't know. I guess maybe there was that time I was nursing you. You were probably, how old was I? A year?
I don't think I nursed you quite for a year.
I hope not.
No.
I don't remember any of this, thank God. But 9 months in, apparently, I'm latched on, and she's writing.
Maybe 6.
Okay, 6 months. I don't remember. Like I said, I don't remember anything before 12. To be honest with you, such was the trauma. Naked vacuumer. So my mother's nursing me. I'm 6 months old, and she's writing. And your words, not mine. I forgot you were there. I was so engrossed in the story until she looks down. I swelled up like a tick. Milk streaming off my face. A nightmare. Nearly drowned me in breast milk at 6 months. That's what we're talking about here. All right. Like, to sum up this last 90 minutes, that's what it is. It's orgasms and peppers and bottles of semen sent through the mail, discussed on the Today Show, wildly inappropriate things, deeply personal things, overcoming cancer diagnoses, nearly drowning her firstborn in breast milk. It's all in here.
But it is a G-rated book. Believe me, it is. I mean, you can let your children read it.
Yeah, there might be a certain
Page 190.
190. Does she really drop the F-bomb on page
No,
190?
I was quoting someone.
See, that doesn't change it. And that's what you got from your mother.
I was
Your mother would do that
quoting
all the time.
somebody.
She would never, I'm not going to read that. Her mother would never cuss unless she was talking about a story where somebody cursed. And then she would repeat it over and over and over. Worst kinds of obscenities you can imagine. There's a little bit out of here, not much. It's a G-rated, it's a G-spot rated book. There's something for the whole family, whether you vacuum or not. PremierCollectibles.com/vacuuming. Thank you. If you order one of those, you'll get one of these book plates. I can't say that both our signatures will be on them, but there's a decent chance you might get both of them if that's worth anything. Meanwhile, you signed what, thousands?
5,000.
Right, well, there it is. Thank you for considering this purchase on behalf of my mom and me. We are very grateful,
And thank you for spending this time with us. I feel honored.
especially those in Sweden and Austria.
And any place.
Yeah, where was that woman, Laura Lee, from that cool sounding place in London, somewhere up there? She was in it was a very strange, like, yeah, British Columbia, like Lady Macbeth, lady, some weird thing. Yeah, it was great. Wherever you are, we love you. Thank you for supporting my mom and for watching Dirty Jobs next season coming in December. It's the QVC thing. I can't shake it.
I know.
I can't.
I'll see you on Facebook. Bye.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks